Welcome, folks. Welcome to another Sollu Kaburz podcast. I'm absolutely delighted to have my third African American guest on this podcast. I've done two episodes with two of my older African American guests. One with rapper Mahdi was my first episode. The other one with motivational speaker Amy Zing, both from the East Coast. So this time I'm going all the way to the West Coast. And Jacquis Neal, am I pronouncing this right?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are, man. How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure having you. I really thought it was Jacquis because that
Yeah,
going
not that fancy, man. Not just even though people mispronounce it often, it goes pretty straightforward.
the S stays right there, huh? No fancy
Yeah,
there.
the S stays. Maybe if I'm trying to, be romantic, I may just go like with a Jacques, but that's very rare.
Right. So it's more often reserved to your dates calling you Jacquis. Just
Oh no, man! I may have to take that. I may have to steal it and use it.
Right. Absolute pleasure having you once again. As I said, can you please tell our folks what you do? You're a comedian, you're a podcaster, you're an actor, but I have actually stumbled upon your tweet about Joe Rogan, and then I checked out your podcast, Culture Kings. It was fantastic. Obviously I did not check all the episodes because it's almost like 250 episodes, but I've checked quite a few and I found them very interesting. And I thought you would be really an appropriate guest to talk about the current state of your country.
Yeah, man. Actor. Been an actor for a minute. Grew up in theater. Fell into comedy once I moved to LA from Chicago, and that's been a pretty good area and lane for me. It's gotten me a lot of really good opportunities, networking. The podcast game has been pretty good to me so far. I can't complain. Culture Kings is a fun show. We get to talk to a lot of dope people. People seem to like it. It's just two homies talking with other people. You know what I'm saying? It's really nothing more than that. I used to call it like The View with two black male comedians, but it's kind of evolving to just like, yo, I'm just a fly on the wall listening to homies talk. So yeah, I enjoy it, but I'm having a good time, in the LA area, just in the field and doing my thing.
Speaking of podcasts, right? Podcasting is filled with white podcasters all around the country, right? White podcasters almost rule the roost. What are some interesting and important African American podcasts that you can point our listeners to, so that we can just tune in? Obviously, including your Culture Kings, which I would totally recommend. But what about you?
Yeah, man. White people love white people in the podcast game. Go together like peanut butter and jelly, man. It's a lot. And they got fans. You talked about that Joe Rogan tweet. That was just a joke, and boy, did people fucking take it. I have a lot of mad people in my mentions, and I thought it tickled me. I loved it. But I think if you want, that's something that's really important to me, is actually amplifying Black artists and voices. I'll give you a few, but one thing that I curated over the past 10 weeks, actually, it just ended like 2 weeks ago, was a project called Black Voices Friday. It was on the Earwolf Presents feed, which is the one-off feed of the network that my show is on, which is Earwolf. And basically every week I just found Black created or hosted podcasts that don't have a platform like I would, or like some of the bigger Black artists do, and just was like, hey, here's a new show for you to discover, find, listen to, and if you like it, great, subscribe to it, tell a friend. If not, sweet, you heard one episode of it. That's the first step, right? So that's something I can recommend right there, is Black Voices Friday. If you just want to, even the ones that don't have a big platform, but you may find something you like, you can check that out. Scam Goddess is a really good podcast with Lacey Mosley. Really, really funny. It's a lot of great guests, and it's about scams, but you know, she kind of praises them and talks about them. It's like a true crime scam without the murder, with the comedian. So that's a really good one. Um, you know, I'm a big fan of Desus and Mero. You know, the Bodega Boys. They still have a great podcast, super fun to listen to. The Read is great. Check that out. That's a really popular one as
The
well.
breakfast. There's another one, right? The breakfast.
The Breakfast Club. Yeah,
Breakfast.
you know, the Breakfast Club is an acquired taste.
Mm.
You know, that breakfast is acquired
Sway,
taste.
sway. I like the sway one too. Sway is really nice.
Sway's great. Sway's great. Yeah. So it's a lot out there. You know,
Yeah.
Joe Budden has one. Depending on what you're looking for, you know, if you're
Right.
looking for
May,
comedy, you got
may I add something to your list? Have you ever heard about Miss Pat? Miss Pat on a podcast by any chance?
no.
Miss Pat is the
Oh, Miss
most.
Pat. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Miss Pat, in my opinion, is like the funniest woman on planet Earth right now. She is so hilarious.
She's
Yeah,
great.
yeah. That and like what let's just shift our conversation to what is happening in your country right now, right? It's like
Yeah.
what a meth lab has your country become right now? How did we get here? Like
Yeah. Well, I think the easy answer for that is we've always been here. We
mm,
didn't kind of get here. We didn't arrive here. We've always been here. And what you're seeing right now, especially with the pandemic, you know what I'm saying, is a lot of people got time to finally realize where we are. Um, you know, the fight that we're fighting right now is no different than the fight that my parents fought or my grandparents fought. And in many ways, you know, we saw progress from those fights, and we got pretty comfortable with the notion that everything was fine, everything was good, everything was better. And things get better, you know. Things are better from when my parents had to sit me down to talk to me about the world, and things will be better for my kids when they have to sit and talk to their kids about the world, you know, like, and so, you know, things get better, but we still have a really long way to go. So right now, what you're seeing is the realization of people realizing that, oh shit, things aren't as good as we thought. You know, staying silent about the things that Black people in this country have been screaming at us about for so long actually hurts it. You know, turning a blind eye and saying like, well, you know, you had Obama as president. Oh man, you got people are so popular. You guys are good. You aren't going through what you went through in the '60s, right? Or going through what you went through, you know, hundreds of years ago. So you good, right? And I think that's just been a really dangerous notion. So what you're seeing right now is the white liberal and the white progressive finally acknowledging to a degree that we haven't seen in a very long time that things aren't as good as we were ignoring or as we were hoping or thought they were while we were ignoring the symptoms that this country has been going through for a very long time.
and it's this notion, right? It's like I was listening to Spike Lee's interview the other day where he was trying to educate something about his movie The Five Bloods that came out on Netflix very recently, and he said like, the bullshit story of America that's being sold, that it was built on the sweat and the hard work of dreaming American people, which is this wonderful origination story of a nation that came out of nowhere and it built on its own 2 feet, but which is all just nonsense, right? The basic progress of this country happened on the backs of slavery and unpaid labor. And
Yeah.
how much is that being missed in, for example, in history textbooks of United States?
Oh, completely. The history that we're all taught is incorrect, is infactual, is inaccurate, whatever you want to say. It is history taught from a whitewashing standpoint. Is history taught that presents the white person in this country as superior. It is history taught that keeps white superiority as the dominant force of this country, right? And that's the unfortunate part, you know. And right now, even, you know, to even answer your other question that you asked in relation to this, one big thing that's going on right now that's been a little bit different is we have a president that is stoking flames unlike most presidents have in a very long time. And stoking the flames of being proud to be racist, but we're not calling it that. We're just calling it being a patriot, right? Patriotism, being proud of your country, being proud of the flag, blah, blah, blah. All of that is starting to be, it's not starting to be, but the proudness of it being rooted in white supremacy is more prevalent than it has been in a very long time, because they feel the other side pushing back. You know, when you get pushed, then that's, you know, the phrase that it's always darkest before the dawn type thing. You know, the dawn was coming, and so now we need to make it, and so the darkest is here. So I think that's what you're seeing right now, and the push to erase history and not acknowledge the history of this, the real history of this country, has always been a case. But the hope is that, you know, especially with social media and how information quickly moves in our lives now, unlike any other moment in history, you know, the generation now and beyond will understand real history. But, you know, that's going to be fought tooth and nail. If when I say the white man, I just mean whiteness in general. And if whiteness in general loses the superiority of being white, then they have nothing. They have nothing. And I know that seems like an extreme thing to say, but when I say that, I mean that you lose your number one identity, you know, and that's going to be fought hard. Losing what makes you is something that people will fight tooth and nail for. And that's what you're seeing right now, is the fear of losing what it means to be white. In the eyes of people who uphold a white system and white supremacy and things like that. Because what it means to be white is exactly what it means to be human, right? Just like the rest of us, and we all have things we're proud of in our culture. But the one thing that sets whiteness apart is the superiority that they have over other cultures. And that is starting to be pushed back tremendously.
And which was long overdue coming, right? It should have happened like 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah. It is long overdue coming. And, you know, listen, one thing that I think about, we're a very young species, just in general, when it comes to, you know, if people who believe in science understand that the human race is the smallest blip of species in this planet's history. So, you know, like,
You're talking about 4.5 billion years of Earth,
yeah,
which is the age, and human beings are around for what? 200,000 years? 300,000
yeah,
years at max? Maybe at max.
yeah. We're a super young species. So, you know, listen, you know, the hope is that the advancement, it will come soon and quick and all the time, but, you know, sometimes we just have to understand, well, I have to tell myself that progress may feel slow, but if we leave this place a little bit better for the people who come after us, then that's progress indeed. So, you know, we're pushing for that progress to happen a lot quicker, so our children and our children's children can have a better place to live.
Absolutely. And it's just people who don't understand this push, right? Especially the people who are below the Mason-Dixon line down south.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like in their head, they are suppressed with decency,
Mm-hmm.
which they have renamed it as political correctness, right? Political correctness is just an defying political correctness is just an excuse to be indecent.
Yeah.
Is-
Yeah.
Isn't it? It's just political correct is just this excuse to, like, it's just a twisted and a complicated name to just be a decent human being, right? It's like I don't want to be
Yeah.
politically correct. Is like I don't want to be indecent.
Yeah, it's a weird. To me, it's always been like the whole political correct, politically incorrect thing has always been rooted in the most simple form of idiocy to me, because no other thing in life do you strive to be incorrect. Like nothing else, like, hey man, here's a test. All right, man, I'm gonna try to be incorrect on all these. Like, that's dumb. It's dumb. And so, like, the notion of political correctness being a bad thing, like, this is the one thing out of millions that we want to be incorrect about. Like, it's stupid. It is so stupid. And the argument just holds no weight to me for that very simple reason,
Right.
because there is nothing else that we want to be incorrect about.
Yes.
But so that is not about politically correct or incorrect for the people who fall on that train. It's about, now I'm comfortable in the hate and the insensitivity and the sexism and the racism and
Transphobism,
all the
yeah.
transphobism, the homophobism. I'm comfortable in that, and I don't want to change my ways. That's all it is. That's all it
Precisely.
is. If somebody says, yo, you stepping on my foot, can you please stop hurting me? You're not gonna be like, man, your foot okay. You're like, oh man, my bad. So if somebody says, hey, what you're doing is hurting me, then stop fucking hurting the person. Like, it's really, it truly is as simple as that. It is such a weird phenomenon, the whole political correctness and incorrectness thing.
It's just it's this quote from this movie called Big Shot, right? Sometimes people use complicated terms so that they just leave them the fuck alone the way they are.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds to me.
Yeah, that's all it is. It's like, what can we call this? Political correctness. Like, in order for something to be political correctness, what other correctness is there? Social correctness, non-political correctness. Like, it is such a stupid thing that the only people who care about it are the people who refuse to
Change.
change. Yeah. Or when they're pushed back, the guilt or the uncomfortableness of their actions is something they don't want to deal with.
They
That's
they
all that's what it is.
they so dearly want to hold on to their status quo. They just don't want to let
Yes.
that go. That's
Mm-hmm.
what it is. Those are the excuses. Um,
Yep.
is the what is the noise of the right wing in the U.S. has gotten far more than it has ever gotten in in its history. Is this the is this the biggest
Yeah.
noise that the right wing is making in terms of the amount of coverage they get in the news, and
Yeah.
the voices that are coming out, right? It's been all these days they have been this has all been a charade in a way, right? It's just that they have been quiet because they were not ruled by a man like Trump all these days, and it's just suddenly all of a sudden it just exploded. They suddenly found this freedom.
Yeah. The right wing is very interesting. It's been bubbling. Before
Yeah.
it's been called something different almost every 3 to 4 years. Now the white ring is defined by MAGA, right? 4 or 5 years ago, it was defined by the Tea Party. Before that, defined by Reaganism. So there's been so many different things for it, but I think the right wing in today's generation, 2020, and look, I'm only 33, I'll be 34 in 3 days. So
Oh,
I'm still a very
happy
young.
birthday in
Oh,
advance.
thank you. I'm still a very young person, so my grasp of history, outside of what I've read and things like that, is mostly what I've lived. And what I've lived, the right wing, I've never seen the two sides, or at least to the thought of the right wing, be so rooted in patriotism. Like the right wing stands for, like when I was younger and when my parents were growing up and grandparents, conservatism was about, economics and moral things here and there and stuff like that, smaller government and things like this. Now, I'm not saying racism and all that didn't exist, because let's be real, there's racism on both sides. There's racism on the left, there's racism on the right. So racism isn't just a right wing thing, right?
Yeah.
And it never has been. But now it just seems like you aren't a patriot if you aren't on the right wing. Like being a patriot stands for white supremacy. And they won't admit that, but that is what the right wing stands for now. It's almost past politics. I don't agree with the economics of the right wing of conservatism. I think economics and moral, the moral aspect of it go hand in hand. But I can't hate you if you believe we should have smaller government. I can't fault you if you believe trickle down economics work.
In fact, you will be open to debate and have a conversation at least.
Yeah, you can have a conversation about it, because at the end of the day, outside of numbers and things like that, if that's what you believe, fine. That's what we can vote for and see what works. And when your shit doesn't work, then it's wrong. But now it just seems like the right wing is just, they have stances that is just like, well, if this is what you believe in, there is no debate on this. I can't debate you if you think my life is less important. I can't debate you if you think women don't deserve rights over their own body. I can't debate you if, like, these are lines in the sand, and the right wing has adopted so many more lines in the sand. And in their words, makes it stand for patriotism, love of country. That is the worst I've ever seen it. And look, I don't love this country. I'll say it. I don't love this country. We have a lot of problems. There are things I like. There are things I don't like.
How can you say that? This country has given you a career in comedy, in podcasting. What the fuck? Come on.
I know, right? I know. I'm so ungrateful. If I should just leave. But there are, because here's the thing.
Come to India, brother. Come to India.
I think love of country is a weird nationalist thing. This isn't sports. This isn't the Chicago Cubs. I love the Chicago Cubs. When they suck, I still love them. I could be mad that they suck. I can still also, loving them, recognize when people in the organization or things like that do trash shit. If a player gets accused for domestic abuse, I'm not going to turn my eyes to that because I love the uniform he wears. But I still love the Cubs, right? I can love them in the good times. I can love them in the bad times. I can't love this country in the bad times. Because that's ignoring the symptoms of things that we can do better as a country. I love the people and I love the spirit that we stand for, but it's no different than any other country. The people, like, we aren't better than anybody. And I think that is what patriotism is rooted in. Loving your country is rooted in. We're the greatest country in the world. Says who? That makes no sense. No, we're not. There's no great country in the world. We all have faults. We all have good things. The people are good and bad everywhere. Like, my country is no better than yours, and your country is no better than the others. And so love of country to me has warped to loving where you live and being appreciative of where you are and liking some things to love. If you don't think we're the best that ever did it, then just get the fuck out. It's like, all right, I'm not going to, like, but if that's what you think, then go ahead, think that.
The real patriotism is when you try to point faults that can actually make your country better.
Yeah, that's real patriotism, like taking care of people, try to
Exactly.
do things that can put everybody in the country on a more even playing field, or give everybody a chance and an opportunity. You know what I'm saying? I think, right now we're in this fight of does socialism work, or, the more progressive side of this country and in the US is a little more rooted in socialism, right? And I think people overestimate what that means, as to we just, people who believe in a more progressive government and a progressive world just want free shit. Um, I'll tell you right now, some of the hardest working people I know are progressives, busting their ass every day, hustling every day in, day out, all day, like different jobs. Like, not some of the hard. So like this idea that we just don't want to work or we just want free shit. If that was the case, then I wouldn't wake my ass up every day and do a million things a day and have 7 things on my plate every damn day that I have to juggle. Like there is no such thing as somebody who just wants things for nothing. Uh, there's pride in doing what and working for things and
Right.
achieving things, and this idea that the bootstrap theory, or this idea that if you aren't on the right, you just aren't somebody who works hard or cares, is such a stupid notion. It's so stupid.
Right. It's just that what people misunderstand is when we ask for something, it's as if the a person who works in McDonald's is asking for a vacation in Hawaii. That
Yeah.
is the impression that people make when they hear something around socialism or something like that, right? It's like, oh, you wanna you wanna go on a world tour. That's what you need the money for. That's what you do. It's just they have this wrong judgment that people will misuse whatever it's given, right? For example, right now in the pandemic, US government wanted to pass some bill that will give $2,000 to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And imagine, like, can you imagine the amount of people that opposed it from the South? It's like it's free money. People will invest in drugs, and it's just such an elitist
It's so
commentary.
elite.
Yeah,
It's so elite. And you know what? If I give somebody $2,000 and they buy drugs with it, buy your drugs, man. I don't give a shit. It's your money. Do the fuck, like, what, like, if you work at McDonald's and you want to go on vacation to Hawaii, why the fuck not? Why shouldn't you? You know what I'm saying? Like,
they don't complain. They don't complain when rich people do it.
yeah, so like, why shouldn't people enjoy life? Why should the things that bring people joy only be reserved for those who can, quote unquote, afford them, you
Right.
know
Exactly.
and quote unquote those who quote unquote think I worked hard for this, so I deserve this. Well, like, just the person who's working at McDonald's is also working hard. They're
Exactly.
working hard too. It's a
Yeah.
different job. They don't make as much, but like, how are you working harder on Wall Street just because you're talking about finances than somebody who's in the kitchen flipping burgers at McDonald's? You're not working harder. You're just working a different job. So,
Also, the guy in the Wall Street is in a system that pays him much.
exactly. Yeah. So, the idea that people care what you do with your individual money to a degree of you don't deserve it unless you work for it type mindset, or to the degree of if we just let them get all this free money, then they just gonna be more lazy than ever. Like, I guess, you know, it's untrue, but if you give that struggling family a little bit more money, then they will have a lot more energy and wherewithal to you know, work harder and have their kids in a better position. So like they can like achieve more and things like that. Like it's just you know, it's greediness. It's greediness.
Yeah.
It's racism. It is the structure of, like I said, white superiority. And white superiority doesn't just apply to white people, unfortunately. There are a lot of people who subscribe to it based on the things that we were just taught growing up in this country, that is rooted in keeping white people and whiteness in power, unfortunately.
Yeah. How do you feel when people like this get a platform like a Joe Rogan podcast? Because I had to come on to that topic because that is where I saw your tweet, right? So it's like
Mhm.
it what a weird guy that guy is, right? How did he become famous? Look, I understand he became famous through some wonderful guests. He has
Mhm.
he does have like when he invites people like Neil deGrasse Tyson or like Cornel West, you know, or someone like Daryl Davis, right? I love his episodes, but when he invites people like Alex Jones or Ben Shapiro, how does he manage to like grab both audience from both sides of the spectrum?
Yeah, I don't know. I think with Joe Rogan, the thing that your white mediocrity is a phrase that gets said quite a bit. I'm sure you've heard of it or you know of it, but the notion that white individuals get to be mediocre and enjoy great success, and people of color have to be excellent to get a seat at the table. Um, and I think Joe Rogan,
George Bush became president and Obama had to work triple hard.
yeah, yeah, you know. I think Joe Rogan is a and look, and when people hear that, they think, oh, so you just think he just got it because he's white. I'm not saying Joe Rogan didn't work. I'm not saying Joe Rogan didn't do things that put him in a better position to get where he's at. Um, you know, people always think you're talking in absolutes when they don't want to think about the areas of gray in the conversation that you are talking about, right? Um, but the system that allows Joe Rogan to make as much money being a mediocre podcast host just because he listens to every side and being the number one podcast host, that doesn't allow, you know, like a Desus and Mero to have the same. And Desus and Mero have a great career, so but like, you know, it's not the same, right? Um, if I would have said Desus and Mero ain't that funny, I wouldn't have had thousands of people in my mentions talking about you must be jealous, you know, like because the expectation of two black men being just okay is a lot more accepted than this popular white guy being just okay. You know, like Joe Rogan is just okay. And that's okay. That is okay that he's just okay. But say that, and boy, do people get upset, you know? And I don't know what that is. I don't know why he has people on both sides. And look, I don't care. Have people on both sides. Who cares? I don't care. Talk to whoever the fuck you want to. It's your show, you know? But this notion that he is the pinnacle of this
Wisdom spreading.
medium
Yeah.
and wisdom spreading and a voice that this notion that Joe Rogan should moderate a debate. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Like, What the fuck has he done that gives you the credence to say, yeah, he can moderate a presidential debate? Let me say Jay-Z can moderate a debate. And watch the response that happens. What? Jay-Z? Jay-Z is just as articulate. Just because he doesn't host a podcast, Jay-Z is just as articulate, talks to just as many people, has just as many inroads in business and things like that. Like, so why couldn't he? Why couldn't Jay-Z host a debate? Let me say Oprah should host a debate. Somebody who had a talk show for 30 years, who actually would be great at it probably. Let me say she should host a debate. How many of those people that got upset at me saying, like, we really gonna say Joe Rogan should host a debate would get upset at me saying she should? Or, the levels of hypocrisy and the levels of double standards, that's what makes me upset about Joe. Somebody in the Joe Rogan position is not him, is what the people who subscribe to what he represents as far as white mediocrity being somehow excellence. That's what annoys me a lot more than anything.
I'll give you one more example. I don't know if you have heard about this dude called Logan Paul.
Oh, geez, yeah, he's the worst. He's the worst. I don't keep up with him.
Me too.
Because I see a couple articles here and there, a couple tweets here and there. And I don't keep up with them because I just have better things to do with my mental capacity. But the fact that somebody like that can be a millionaire because people just want to see, like, really, that is.
And they defend him, and they defend him like, oh, he's a changed person. Oh, he's not that person who went to that forest and filmed a suicide forest anymore. It's like the number of passes that white celebrities get is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, they do. The numbers of passes that they get is insane. But, a cop puts his knee on George Floyd's neck for over 8 minutes and 30 seconds. And people, well, he had a counterfeit 20. Oh, well, he used to do drugs. Like, so why should we care? Like, if he didn't want to die, he shouldn't have lived a life of crime. But Logan Paul, oh, he's changed, man. You can't go by his past. You know what I'm saying? He's changed. He's all good. He doesn't deserve the ire that you are giving him. But George Floyd's past makes him deserve the death that was given to him. That's the disconnect. Like, that's the disconnect in this country.
It's
that
like, yeah,
baffling.
it's like they expect more perfection from black people, and they are okay with quite a lot of imperfection from white celebrities. That is the double standard, yeah.
Yeah, that seems to be the case, unfortunately.
Right.
And what's his name? Colby Covington doesn't get told to shut up and box, but LeBron James gets told to shut up and dribble. And LeBron James is on the Mount Rushmore of basketball history, and he gets told to shut up and dribble. Colby Covington is 2 fights away from getting his face broken, and he gets to say whatever he wants because he loves patriotism. The double standard is astounding. It's astounding.
It's just if you can, I can also remind you of one more incident. The Kaepernick. What's his full name?
Colin Kaepernick.
Kaepernick. 4 years ago, he was terminated from his NFL contract. Now, for the exact thing that a ton of football players are doing it right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he still can't get a job. He's blacklisted. Excuse me, and blackballed. Yeah, it is. That's another thing that we're seeing is our country, white supremacy, and the upholders of whiteness. There's no way for us to protest. We kneel, not like that. We take to the streets peacefully, they're unpeaceful. Send the riot squad. We use social media, not like that. Get it out our face. The NBA puts Black Lives Matter on the court. It's in our face too much. LeBron James or, black athletes or whatever say, get out and vote. Keep politics out of sports. Not like that. Then how? How? Outside of us just shutting the fuck up.
Exactly.
How? There is every way that we have protested has been deemed as wrong. So all these people take it to the streets, but you're blocking traffic. Not like that. Do it on the sidewalks. It's just,
Excuses. All I hear is excuses.
All excuses.
Right.
So, all that tells me is that you don't care. You have this. If you have the same outrage if we throw a brick through a window and set it on fire as if we block traffic, or if we wear Black Lives Matter on our jersey. So if the outrage is the same for you, then I don't buy your outrage. Sorry. It's like your outrage means nothing to me.
It's the same guy. They are the same people who will say Mookie was at fault for throwing that garbage can through that window and do the right thing.
Yeah. Seriously. And those people. Here's the thing. Where we are in this country right now is, unfortunately, listen, we're going to say what we got to say and keep on talking, right? Put the pressure on. Maybe we will reach some people who we couldn't reach before. But I understand that there's people who we're just not going to reach. That's okay. We don't need them. The people we need to reach are the ones who we can reach, and the people we need to reach are the ones who are inactive. Those are the ones that need to be reached, the inactive people. Because if the inactive people stand with the active people, there's no stopping the movement. There's no stopping the movement that is based not around hate, because I tell you what, hate-based movements, anybody who believes in it will get active in it. It's the ones who don't necessarily believe in it. Those are the ones who are inactive. You're like, well, everything is okay for me. It's not affecting me personally. So, I don't like what white people do to people of color. I don't like racism, but I'm not feeling it. So I'm good I'm good where I am, Those are the ones that are dangerous. So
exactly. The soft sympathizer, right?
Yeah.
It's I just saw the saying the other day. It's like the ones who are not interested in politics are the ones who don't want the world changed because it helps them the way it is.
Yeah. The ones who aren't affected, the ones who aren't interested, the ones who aren't affected, which means that you are being helped by the system that's in place. Even if you don't want to admit it. As a man, I'm helped every day by the system of the patriarchy and male superiority. Every day, even as a black man. So, and I have to recognize that. And if I fail to recognize that, then I just am upholding it.
Yeah.
I'm upholding it. Even if I'm not out here, doing sexist things and contributing overtly to patriarchy and to, the denigration of women in our society. Even if I'm not out here overtly doing anything, if I don't even recognize that it's something that is being done, then I'm letting it happen all around me, which is just as bad.
Yes.
It's just as bad. So.
Yeah. Man, I mean, how am I supposed to feel when if because I've never visited America so far, and I visit America, how am I supposed to feel when a guy with a pickup truck and a couple of flags is passing by? Because American flag has become this symbol of, it is slowly becoming this
Yeah,
symbol of hate, right? It's just turning
it
into this.
is, right?
It's as good as a Confederate flag is what it's turning out to be. And I just maybe I should I think I'll rightfully freak out if I'm not wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, you do. You just kind of, ignore it and let it pass, right? I've seen a few. I go walking in my neighborhood. I live in Los Angeles, and Los Angeles is a liberal city.
Yeah.
But I live in the valley of Los Angeles, which is still pretty liberal, but a little more conservatives out here. Walking past a big ass house with a Trump flag just makes you tighten up a little bit, right? Because that hate is close.
In LA, bro. In LA, of
Yeah,
all the
even
places.
in Los Angeles. Yeah, absolutely. Hate is close. And that's scary. That's
Yeah.
scary. It's super scary, right? But, for the most part, you just, go about your day and live your life and try to
Yeah.
find the joy in the day that you can and fight in the moments that you can. And in the moments that you can't, try to find that extra gear to fight. Um, you know, and try to make try to make every day a little bit better. And some days won't, some days will.
Wh-
But those motherfuckers are crazy, man. Those seeing the seeing the Make America Great Again hat is noticeable, and it makes you perk. I saw
Yeah.
one in a grocery store a couple months ago. I was getting some broccoli or some shit, and this white couple came up. She was wearing an American flag mask, which automatically I was like, and then he had a MAGA hat on, and I was just like,
Yeah, we,
they are 7 feet away from me, and I'm just like, these people hate me. These people hate me, and I know it. I know it. They look at me and say, I bet you he's a liberal black man. And they feel some type of way about me. And I know what people are saying, well, you feel some type of way about them too. Right. But the way they feel about me is different, because the way I feel about them is this is somebody that represents something that will hurt me just for existing. Whereas I hate them because of your actions, what you do and what you say. If your actions are reprehensible, I'm allowed to hate you, but you're not allowed to hate me simply for
existing.
existing. Yeah, those are two different things.
Damn. I mean, you feel like this in LA. How are we supposed to feel for people of color living in a place like, say, Alabama or,
Yeah.
and it's like uh, Texas. Texas is again a red state, right? It's like I just feel for those guys.
Yeah, you do. Hopefully they're living in more liberal places in the red states, because there's liberal places in every state.
Yeah.
Liberal neighborhoods, maybe
Austin in
neighborhood.
Texas.
Yeah, neighborhoods where people are a little more like-minded. But if you're not living in a place that's like-minded, you just pray for their safety and
Yeah.
pray that they
In
make
a
it through.
place in a place where guns are legal.
Yeah, and you pray for their mental safety too, and their
Right.
mental health. And sometimes, like you're just holding on. Black people hold on to things and still have to go about their day and put a smile on their face. And you're
Right.
just holding on to all of this tension and holding on to all of this stuff that is not even in stuff. Like when Ahmaud Arbery passed away, when he got shot when he was jogging. I run as well. And I made a video and I said something that to the effect of, somebody deciding that, oh, that looks like a black person that I heard robbed somewhere a couple weeks ago. That thought is always somewhere in the back of my mind. Always. Even before Ahmaud Arbery. Sometimes it's so far in the back of my mind, it's not even conscious. It's not even in my conscious. I'm not even thinking about it. But it's always there. And you hold on to that. you're holding on to that. And you realize how much you hold on to it when, unfortunately, that subconscious thought that's in the back of your mind comes to the front of your mind. And you realize, like, damn.
It reminds me of that joke, right? I was watching Chris Rock's special on Netflix, and he did something on the police brutality, and he's like, when a policeman sees Chris Rock, he's like, black guy, black guy, black guy, black guy. Oh, Mr. Rock, a big fan, big fan. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. You know, a
in
white
fact,
person.
he used a different word. He used the N word. I don't want to use that, but that's the
Yeah,
idea.
right. Yeah, and it is. A white person, most white people don't, and most white men especially, because white women do have to carry the burden of being a woman, unfortunately, in this world. I always look at the white man, white woman trope, or, you know, argument as, yes, we understand that as a woman, you as a white woman aren't as equal as the white man and do have things that you need to fight for.
Yeah.
But you both are at the table. The white man just has a bigger piece of the pie, but you got a slice of pie on your plate too. Other people are fighting to get into the house. You know, but a white man, mostly, for sure, especially, doesn't have to walk down the street and worry, really, ever. Even if a white and if a white man came to Compton, he would be worried because he's just worried about his fear of black people. But for the most part, that white man never has to walk down the street and worry. A person of color shouldn't have to walk down the street and risk getting pulled over by a cop or risk getting seen by somebody and be like, if I was somebody famous, I would be left alone. You shouldn't need the cloak of
Fame to protect you.
to feel comfortable,
Right.
as a person on this planet.
Yeah. Precisely. Man, it's like, it's crazy, right? I mean, I've heard reports of Klan, right? Klan in New York and, California and places like that. It's like, and this MAGA hat has become the new Klan robe in a way, isn't it?
Yeah.
That was one more expression that I was reading the other day.
Yeah,
Where,
it has.
where do you think this will end up? I mean, what will happen if Biden gets elected, and what will happen if Trump gets elected again? Where do you think all this bullshit is going?
Yeah. If Trump gets elected again, it'll be tough. It'll be tough to the psyche.
Yeah.
Because it'll be just a feeling of hatred wins, right?
Right.
And I think we're gonna see just more and more freedoms go by the wayside, and if Biden gets in, look, the Democratic Party isn't perfect. In many ways, they also uphold whiteness and white supremacy, and can do many things better for the working class and the working man and people of color and marginalized groups. But one, it'll be a blow to the psyche of racism and hatred. Two, we can't get further left by going further right.
Yes.
And if we have the hope to get further left, we don't do that by becoming a more fascist country.
Right.
And I think that's what will happen if Trump gets reelected. We are barreling toward a more fascist country. And 4 years from that, in 2024, if he's still the president, I hate to even think about what this country will look like as far as fascism and white supremacy being upheld. Like, he's even fighting for patriotism to be taught in schools. Patriotism history, right? That's propaganda. That's fascism. That is That is nationalist, and that is teaching the history that we want to teach to further degrade people of color in this country. And if we get 4 more years of that, it's going to be tough. It'll be tough. So, but we'll persevere. We always do. We always have. We have to. We just had to find new ways to do it. And if the Democrats get in, Biden gets in, the fight isn't over. That's the thing that needs to be recognized. The fight is not over.
Yeah.
In many ways, it's still just beginning. In many ways, it's just beginning. So we gonna have to fight no matter who gets into office. It's just, are we fighting with 2 hands behind our back or 1 hand untied?
Right. And man, isn't Trump going full megalomaniac right now? I mean, he's planting some judges, and he's saying things like, "I'm not gonna let go of my seat that easily. I'm gonna disregard the votes and the counting." And his and November will be a very interesting month, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm very interested. We went through this in 2000 with Bush and
Oh
Gore.
yeah.
Which is the first election that I remember. I was 13 at that time, going on 14. I was 14 at that time, actually. And that's the first election that I remember. But that fight came after the fact, but that's what started it, 20 years ago. That's what started this whole, basically, Republicans have to cheat to win. And what he's doing now, what Trump is doing now, is he is actively delegitimizing the election before we even have an election, because I think he sees the writing on the wall. So he is delegitimizing it. So when he does contest it, he has some way to stay in power. We'll see.
You know how the world is feeling? The world is feeling. So imagine if I am the world and you are USA. I'm just grabbing my popcorn and I'm just grabbing a drink and I'm just ready to watch the show unravel. I'm just waiting for it. And it's like, there's no offense. This is no joke to you, but and I lost respect in US after 2016, man. No offense. I mean, I used to be.
I should. Yeah.
I used to be in the awe of the United States of America, and then when Trump got elected, I was like, you know what? These people can be dumb too. That is what I did.
Yeah. The little respect I had, lowered. But, the sad part is a lot of people of color, a lot of people in these marginalized groups, the most surprised person by Trump's election was the white liberal. 3 weeks before the election, I was telling everybody who would listen, Trump is about to win. I felt it. I knew it. I could see it. I could feel it. I didn't care what no damn poll said. I could see the excitement in his side, on his side. I could see how the racists were fired up. I could see it. I can feel. I could hear everything that they were saying. The way the media was talking, everything that we were focused on, Hillary's emails and all this other bullshit. I could see it fucking coming. And a lot of black people did. A lot of people of color did. We weren't surprised.
Interesting.
We were not surprised.
Very interesting.
If you go back and watch the first SNL after the election, Dave Chappelle is the host.
Okay.
And Chris Rock is in this skit too, but they have a skit where all the white people are just so hurt. I can't believe it. And all the black people was like, hate to see it, because and it was a perfect depiction of what the minority in this country saw coming, because we was like, this is the country we've been telling you live in for a long ass time, and welcome to knowing it. Welcome to what it feels like to be black. I saw it. I don't see it as much this election. I don't know. I think the thing that I see this election is, if he wins, it'll be a stolen election. But I think when it comes to the actual vote, I'm not as confident in the Trump win as I was in 2016.
Finally, something good that I heard in 2020, or what a fuck all year this has been. Um,
Mm,
but you say this thing, but I've totally lost trust on polls and stuff, right? Back in 2016, right? Because every single poll was like Hillary is going to come rolling down, becoming the first woman president of the country, and then, but what we don't know is there is a different universe in Fox News and that fraternity entirely, right? They
hmm.
have a different shit altogether that we literally don't even get to see.
Yeah, yeah.
Fox News
The
is Fox News is apparently the largest watched channel in US,
It
and
is. It is. And the funny thing about that is they say those numbers, and while it's true, but if you look a little deeper, the vast majority of people who vote Democrat, one, don't watch television. Two, also distrust mainstream media because they paint stories to sell stories.
yeah,
So whereas the Fox demographic are middle of the country, people who still pay a cable bill, who haven't cut the cord, and people who believe the first thing they hear on TV, as opposed to our generation, which we get our news from multiple sources, right?
yeah,
We hear something, and then we want to back it up, and then we want to read about it. That is the gist of our generation. So while Fox is the number one news network in the country, what that doesn't take into account is the fact that where the majority of the younger generation gets their news is not television. so
yeah,
so I will say that.
right,
But yeah, I mean, the Fox is just a propaganda. It's not even news. It's a propaganda channel. And the polls were wrong. And the polls did show that she had a high chance of losing the electoral college.
yeah,
Still thought she would win, but the chance of her losing the electoral college was a lot higher than Biden's chance is now.
right.
But
Because
it's all about the states. That's what
I,
needs to stop is the states. The electoral college in this country needs to be abolished.
yeah, that is again a trick to keep white power in place. That and the senator system of every single state having two senators out of the blue, those
It's
things.
ridiculous.
Yeah, it's and then I remember watching this. I remember watching back in 2016 because I am an Indian and I want to come to America, but the immigration policies are very hard, and Trump was going to affect immigration policies further, right? So I was
Hmm.
really interested in American election, and then I watched, and then my jaw just dropped on the floor when I saw her lose Wisconsin of all states, which has never voted red since 1984. Michigan, right? And Pennsylvania went down, and it was bloodbath.
Yeah, it was bad. The enthusiasm wasn't there on the left either.
Mm,
And while the enthusiasm isn't necessarily there as far as we love our candidate,
yeah,
the enthusiasm is much more prevalent as we can't let this motherfucker keep and let this administration stay
continue.
in power.
Yeah,
That's where the enthusiasm is,
mm,
and that's where the silent majority is,
mm,
and the people who are like, this administration that's in has caused damage that we didn't even know possible. Some people.
yeah,
Some people did know it was possible and knew it was coming if he got elected. So that's the wave of enthusiasm that we are going to be fighting. But look, it's a dangerous fight
yeah,
because that enthusiasm was there. The enthusiasm of we hate this president was there in 2004
yeah.
with Bush versus Kerry,
Oof.
and Bush still won. It's hard to unseat an incumbent. It's hard
Right,
to unseat an incumbent. It happened right before that, with Bush and Clinton, but uh, but it's hard to unseat an incumbent.
right,
It's a different
right.
world now, though. So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, yeah.
Kamala being on the ticket helps too.
Mm,
But the progressive side, the leftist side, whatever you want to call it, have a lot of things to be upset about. But I'm just hoping
Hmm.
that
Well, if
they'll vote
Sanders,
still.
if Sanders, Bernie Sanders was the Democratic nominee, what would be your guess?
I think he will win.
Hmm.
Kinda.
Hmm.
I don't know because the enthusiasm with the young vote would be there in the progressive side. But the fact of the matter is, he lost 2 primaries.
Yeah.
And,
How
and while
how
and
though? Like,
yeah, I mean, the overall thought is the DNC and the Democratic side just beat him down and didn't want him to win, so they did everything in their power to stop it. And while that could be true, and in most cases is true, the fact of the matter is he still lost 2 primaries, and
or
that.
do you think America is not left enough in general?
I do think America is left, but maybe not left enough. And I do wonder if he would have gotten those moderate votes, but I think he still would have won.
Hmm.
I think he still would have won. I think Biden is going to win.
Hmm.
I do. I think Biden is going to win, and I'm not just saying that because I want it to happen. I do think he's going to win, but there was going to be a base on the
Yeah.
left that wouldn't have been excited about the candidate.
Right.
With Bernie, it would have been the more moderate side
Yeah.
of the Democrats. And with Biden, it's the more leftist,
Yeah.
progressive side of the Democrats.
Yeah.
The hope is, though, that once again, we as progressives have to swallow a pill that we are tired of swallowing and vote for the sake of this country.
Right.
And even though we didn't do that as much as we should have in 2016, I think we will in 2020.
Right. Right. Man, amen to that, and fingers crossed. I think so. If you had your savings to bet on, you would bet on Biden this time. That's your thought,
I don't know if I would bet my savings on it.
right?
I'll bet like $20. I'll bet
Yeah,
$20 on it.
55, 45. You think 55 Biden, 45 Trump?
I think it's about a 65% chance Biden wins.
Brilliant, brilliant, man. Let's just hope for the sake of 2020 that happens. I think that is a great and an optimistic note to end this podcast. Jacquis, thank you very much for your presence. Thank you very much for doing an Indian podcast. Not sure you've done this before, but absolute pleasure having you here.
Yeah, this was great. I appreciate you having me on. You're doing good work, so keep it up, man. I appreciate what you're doing. It is another thing that just unfortunately about America is the world is glued to what we do as a country, which is a good thing. But just to show you how ignorant Americans are, like most Americans could only care about the 50 states in our country, and we need to change that. And this is a good way and a good step to do that. So, man, I appreciate what you're doing. Thank you.
Hey, before going, would you tell about your podcast a bit and your social media presence where people can find you?
Yeah. You can find me everywhere at Jacquis Neal, JACQUISNEAL.
Twitter.
That's all. Yeah, Twitter, Instagram. That's how you can find me. JacquisNeal.com if you want the website as well. And Culture Kings, yeah, check it out. It's a fun podcast. We have some really fun guests. It's a comedy podcast, but we're not afraid to chop it up and talk about anything, even if it's heavy, if it's not. But hopefully the conversation is always good, and hopefully it's always enjoyable. And I think it's worth listening to. So if you got some time and some space in your podcast life, check it out.
I think it's the same platform that Conan also has his own podcast on Earwolf,
Yes.
right? Conan,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Our podcast is on the same podcast network that the Conan O'Brien podcast is on. Yes.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you very much, Jacquis Neal. Thank you very much, ladies and gents. If you have been listening to Sollu Kaburz podcast for this long, that's it from this episode. Until we see you next time. Who would have thought a man from Los Angeles and a man from Tirupati, Andhra Pradesh, India would have interacted this way? This has been brilliant. Thank you, brother.